No, this way, Eva. Right, it's the middle of March, and here on the south coast of England, the Ramson's wild garlic is just starting to really come into season. So I'm going to pick some of this lovely fresh wild garlic here today and take it home and make a version of a Ukrainian garlic bread called Pampushka. So I'm starting with 400 grams of strong white flour, a sachet of dried active instant yeast, about a teaspoonful of white sugar just to help that yeast along, about a teaspoon of salt. And I'm just going to mix those dry ingredients together just to get them evenly dispersed. Now, some of the recipes I looked at didn't call for this, some did, but I'm going to add an egg to mine as well as water. And I'm just going to top that up to a volume of 225 millilitres. So the total liquid is 225 ml, of which part is 1 egg. And the water I've used here is not hot, it's just kind of blood temperature. So it's just lukewarm, same temperature as the human body really. And that's because hot water would just kill the yeast. And we just combine those ingredients together so it comes together into a dough. Okay, now that that's starting to come together, I'm just going to get my hand in there. And to start with, the dough's a little bit dry, but as it absorbs the flour, it will just get sticky and it will pick up the rest of the flour. Okay, so that's absorbed nearly all of that flour now. Just going to get that out onto a board so I can knead it. Now, at the moment, it looks quite a crumbly dough, so I've just got to keep on kneading it until I get a smoother texture and all of those crumbs disappear. Now, while I'm kneading this, I'll just explain why I'm making Pampushka. So this is a Ukrainian recipe, and obviously you're aware Ukraine is in the news a lot at the moment. I'm not imagining in any way that this video is helping, but I really just wanted to celebrate something positive about Ukraine. And, you know, my heart really goes out to all those people. Oh, Eva, come on! My heart really goes out to all those people who've been displaced and are refugees and are fleeing for their lives. It's a terrible situation, and it's distressing. There is a link in the top of this video to a charity in Ukraine which is providing medical assistance and support for troops and refugees. So if you feel inspired to donate to that, it's up there at the top right of the YouTube page somewhere. Obviously this video isn't really going to provide any tangible help directly. There are other ways I can do that. But I just really wanted to celebrate something positive about Ukraine. And it seemed to me like choosing a beloved food of that country might be a good thing for me to try. Right, that'll do for now. I'm going to put that in an oiled bowl, cover it and let that prove until it doubles in size, and then we'll knock it back before we do a second proving. Now, it's going to be garlic bread, and I haven't got any garlic in this at the moment. So let's go and find some local wild garlic. So yeah, this garlic really couldn't be better right at the stage it's at now. Lovely, fresh, green leaves. You can eat the whole thing. I'm just going to pull up bunches of this and take that home, and I'll stick it in some water while we're proving the bread. But yeah, probably a couple of bunches like that, I think, maybe. So I'll have that bunch from there, I think. Now you do have to be a bit careful when you're just grabbing handfuls of wild herbs. You can see here I picked a few ivy leaves with that, and ivy would not be a tasty addition to this garlic bread. So yeah, need to make sure that you're picking what you think you are, and especially with garlic, because garlic will make your hands smell of garlic, and it's very easy to pick something else later and then smell it, and actually you're smelling the garlic on your hands, not the plant you just picked. Right, the Pampushka recipe also calls for parsley, and I don't have any fresh parsley, but there is another plant that's around at this time of year called ground elder, which is a very, very good substitute for parsley. So I'm going to go and seek some of that out now. Now, I think the usual cautionary note is in order for early spring foraging, as for all foraging in fact, but especially early spring. So here I've got a lot of wild garlic here coming up in the middle of a bunch of other things like I think that's dog's mercury. There's some hogweed at the back there. There are various other things. Some of them will be bluebells or other spring bulbs sprouting early in spring. And when you're picking things this early in the year, a lot of the leaves that are coming up all look kind of the same. So it's necessary to be really cautious about what you're picking, because it's harder to recognize things at this time of year than it would be at other times when they're in flower or when the plant is more developed. So proceed with caution. And what atomic shrimp foraging video would be complete without a mention of hemlock water dropwort? So there we go, that's hemlock water dropwort at this time of year. That is cow parsley there. And they're not that similar, but also they're not that different. And if you were to just go and grab a few handfuls of leafy things without really paying attention, you could very easily pick something quite dangerous. Now, ground elder is a particular case in point for potential misidentification, because at this time of year this is what it looks like. These little bits of green poking through the dead leaves here are ground elder, but at this time of year the plant's very small. There's more of nearly everything else around, and just from a kind of statistical point of view, the odds are kind of stacked against you for picking this successfully. But anyway, I don't need very much ground elder, and I've come to a place that I know it grows, which is what helps me make sure I've got the right thing. So I'm just going to pick a few little sprigs of that. Probably that's enough. I will take a few more of the little fresh pieces that are just coming through like that. But yeah, I would not recommend trying to forage for ground elder at this time of year unless you're already very familiar with the plant, and in particular, like I am here, familiar with this particular place of it being an abundantly covered area where ground elder grows. So I wouldn't recommend picking it to anybody who's not really familiar with it, but I know it grows here, so that's why I came here to get it. So back at home, that bread's looking good, not quite doubled in size yet. I'm just going to put these garlic stems in a glass of water to keep them perky, otherwise they will wilt. I don't think it would make much difference to the flavour, but it's just nice to have them fresh. The ground elder stems are too short really to do anything like this with, so I should just wash them and put them in a little bowl or a little pot in the fridge. Okay, this dough's been proving for about an hour, and look at that, it's more than doubled in size, and it's nice and soft and springy to the touch. So I'm going to take that out. It's actually, considering how dry that felt when it went in there, it may need a bit more flour just to stop it being all sticky and moist. It's interesting that when that went in at the start, I started to worry a little bit that I might not have added enough liquid, because it seemed like a really dry dough. But just while it's been sitting proving, the moisture's kind of developed. I guess the flour has soaked up all the moisture it could, and some of that came back in the form of almost liquid water. Anyway, just going to give that another knead now, just to knock it back. This reduces the size of all of the bubbles that are in there, and then we'll give it another proof before we bake. Lovely stretchy dough we've got now, and it feels really nice and smooth and silky. Okay, got to cut that into 8 pieces, in half, in half again, and in half a third time. And we'll end up with 8 pieces that way. Good. Now, I need to roll these into nice round balls, so I can just do that with my hand. And the way to do it is to make a kind of cage with one hand and roll with the other. You can do it on a board like that. A bit too much flour on that board. Let's just have a look at that again. So very loose kind of cage with my dominant hand and flat palm with the left hand, and we get a nice round roll. It doesn't look like I've cut them particularly evenly, but I'm sure it'll be fine. Okay, 8 little rolls. Now I've got to find a tin that will accommodate them kind of like that. I think it might actually be my skillet. So, tiny brush of oil in the bottom of the skillet just to stop it from sticking. And yeah, we'll go for the biggest one in the middle. Okay, now at the moment they're all separate rolls. What will happen now is I'll prove that for another hour, or maybe as short as half an hour, and those will swell up and then they will kind of fuse back together. So I will just cover that with a piece of oiled non-stick baking sheet. This is a reusable baking sheet. Just ever so lightly oiled that, and I'll just cover that over to stop it drying out and keep the flies off. Right, 45 minutes has elapsed and these have swelled right up. Look at that, they've really risen well and all joined together. That's perfect. I've now got to preheat the oven. I'm going to go for 210 degrees Celsius fan. And as that oven just comes up to temperature, I'm just going to prepare an egg wash. And we'll give these a careful but thorough basting of egg. And this should ensure a really nice golden top. That little beep is the oven just coming up to temperature. Just check that over, make sure I haven't missed a spot. Right, into the oven now for 25 minutes and then we'll give it a check, maybe a little bit longer depending on how it looks. Rest of that egg wash, I'll just put it in a little container and we'll put it in the fridge. I'll think of something else to do with that. I might have an omelette or something for breakfast and I'll just add that into the mixture. Okay, now for the part that makes this distinctively what it is. And so I've got probably only about half of the garlic I picked there. Just a nice little bunch, which I've washed obviously. And some of my ground elder, which is standing in for parsley. And I'm just going to run the knife through that. Maybe just get rid of the stalk. Chop that up into small pieces. And the same with this garlic. And it might seem like quite a lot of garlic, but it does, once it's chopped, it will disappear down. I am going to use the stalks as well, because it's slightly different texture. This is all going to go in raw. So I'm just going to chop that down, just to make sure we're all nicely finely chopped. That looks good. And then yeah, these little stalks, I'm just going to chop them up like that, because they've got a slightly different texture, just a little bit of a crunch. And the aroma coming off of this right now is pungently garlic, but I know from experience this stuff has quite a mild flavour despite having a pungent smell. So in a jug, about 3 tablespoons of sunflower oil. My inclination would be to use butter here, but it's more authentic, I think, to use sunflower oil. I did check on this, and the Ukrainian recipes seem to call for sunflower oil. Generous pinch of salt in there too, and then I'll just mix that together to let the flavour of that garlic infuse into the oil. And that'll just stand until the bread comes out of the oven. I think 25 minutes was exactly right. those are nicely baked. And now, immediately while it's still hot, you just spoon over this garlic dressing oil over the top. And because the bread is still hot, it's going to kind of suck up that oil. You can hear it sizzling. That's probably mostly the residual heat of the pan actually, but you can hear the thing just sucking up the flavour. Just brush that around just to make sure I haven't missed anywhere. And there we go. That is my attempt at making pampushka, and I'm fairly happy with that. Now the traditional thing to serve this alongside is borscht, which is a kind of beetroot and cabbage soup. I'm going to be making a soup that's kind of inspired by borscht, but it's not going to be anywhere near authentic. I don't have any cabbage actually, so it's just going to be a beetroot and onion and carrot and chicken and tomato soup. So it's not going to be anywhere near authentic borscht, but hopefully it will give me a little bit of a flavour of how these things fit together. Anyway, that's pampushka, and that's got to be served while it's still nice and hot. Okay, time to make my kind of borscht adjacent soup. So, onion in the pan. I'm just going to sweat that down in a little bit of oil until it softens. Meanwhile, what I've got here is about half a beetroot, other half is here, a potato and a carrot, which I diced up and roasted in the oven, just to kind of give them a little bit of caramelised flavour and to cook them a little bit. So these roasted vegetables, I'm just going to push them up to one end of the pan like this and let the oil drain off them. While we're waiting for that to happen, let me just explain. My friend Babatunde in Nigeria is going to have a go at making pampushka. That could be quite a challenge for him because availability of ingredients and so on is quite limited out there. So he might have to adapt it, he might have to improvise a little bit. His video is going to be in this card here or in the video description if you're not on a card enabled platform. Please do take a look at that because I think it could be interesting. Those onions are cooked now, or at least as fried as they need to be for making soup. And now the beetroot, potatoes and carrots are going to go in. I don't know how authentic this is going to be, but we're going to have a squeeze of tomato puree. We're going to have a pinch of mixed dried herbs and about a level teaspoonful of sweet paprika. Now that will burn really quickly, so I need to be careful with that. Chicken stock. This is real chicken stock I made. Still got a block of frozen stock in the middle, but it'll be fine. Just going to simmer that for a little bit, make sure all that tomato and paprika is properly cooked. And my chicken stock, when I made it, didn't have any salt in it. I'm just going to put one of these little Maggi seasoning cubes in there. These are basically salt plus a bit of MSG. Right, well that's looking a bit orange at the moment for something that's got beetroot in it, but fear not. The other half of this beetroot, I'm going to peel and grate, and it will go straight into the soup. Probably should have worn a red shirt for this. Now this beetroot's going to go in quite late into the soup, and it won't completely cook, but there's no reason why you can't eat beetroot completely raw. Actually really nice. Okay, little taste for seasoning. And I'll just start with maybe about half of that beetroot in there. Like I say, this is not borscht, but hopefully in terms of flavours, it's somewhere in that vicinity. Yeah, I think it's going to be good. A little bit more of that beetroot in there. Okay, nearly forgot. I'm just going to have just about half a tablespoonful of cider vinegar, just to brighten that flavour a little bit. Right, I think before we dish up the soup, I'm just going to see how this bread's come out. So it is meant to kind of tear. Yeah, wow, look at that. Really fluffy, light bread. Grab a bit, Jenny. Help yourself to a chunk. I'm just going to try a little piece just like that. It's just really, really nice white bread. But that garlic oil sauce, yeah, actually that's quite a nice way to have garlic bread, I think. Okay, well, pampushka and not borscht. Just nicer. So there we go. That was my attempt to make pampushka. Please do let me know what you think of that in the comments. And as I say, there's going to be that link top right on the YouTube page for a charity that's going to help Ukrainian refugees and give medical aid and so on. Of course, that's completely optional, but it's there if you want it. Okay, the following morning, I've still got that egg wash left. And I've also got 3 of my pampushka rolls left. I'm not going to waste these. I'm going to make some eggy bread with pampushka, because actually this bread is amazing. I'm really pleased with how well this came out. So I'm just going to slice that into nice little pieces. I think maybe 2 of those rolls. I think I'm going to add some more garlic as well. I've got a bit more of my wild garlic left over, so I think I'll add that. If you can hear something sizzling in the background, by the way, that's some slices of bacon frying. I'm going to do the same again. I'm going to chop up this garlic quite small. Just keep running the knife through it until it's the size pieces I want. And this time I'm going to add that straight into the egg mixture. I'll have an additional egg in there. And just beat that all together. And I'll just put some of these slices of bread in there and let them soak up a bit. That bacon is just about as crispy as I like it. Don't want it any further than that. And then into that hot bacon fat, the garlic aroma that came off the moment these hit the pan, kind of amazing. Just going to rescue a few of these little bits of garlic from this bowl and daub them on the bread. They have soaked up a bit of that oil, so all of that bacon fat has just disappeared into them. So just to help them along a little bit, I think we'll have a bit of butter in there. Okay, pampushka eggy bread, or French toast if you prefer, with bacon. Can't wait to give this a little taste. Oh, that's really good. Yeah, the garlic together with the salt from the bacon, that is really good. So as I say, I don't expect this video to do anything in its own right about the huge problem that's happening in the Ukraine right now. However, I did want to just celebrate something positive about Ukrainian culture and food. And I've really enjoyed making this, and I've just really enjoyed learning about this food. As I say, Babatunde, my friend in Nigeria, is going to have a go at making this, so do check out his video. And if you want to, do check out that donation link that will be top right in the YouTube page. Completely optional, of course, but it's there if you want it. I hope this has been interesting. I'm definitely going to cook this again because I've really enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.